Welcome, IAS aspirants, to today's explainer on a topic you absolutely cannot ignore for your GS Paper 2, demographic dividend or disaster. We hear the term demographic dividend thrown around constantly in the news, right? But are we genuinely looking at a dividend, or is it actually a looming disaster?
Exactly. If our country is truly serious about creating a productive labor force, we need to dig into the stark reality of what our youth are aspiring to achieve versus what they're actually attaining.
So this brings us to a classic high-stakes question. Imagine you're sitting in your UPSC mock interview, and the panel asks you, are our youth aspiring for education that is simply beyond their reach, or is the system itself failing them? We really need to pivot our narrative here, because as we're going to see from the data, it's not a lack of ambition among the youth, not at all. It is actually about deep structural and systemic failures.
To answer that question effectively, we need solid data. So we're drawing up on the State of Working India Report 2026, published by Azim Premji University. They utilize the Population Council's Udaya dataset. You'll definitely want to note these specific points for your mains answers. This dataset tracked adolescents initially aged 15 to 19 and then followed up 3 years later. Crucially, it focuses on 2 states, Uttar Pradesh and Bihar. Now, why these 2? Well, they have the largest youth populations in India, so they act as the perfect microcosm for analyzing the entire nation's demographic trajectory.
Now, the staggering divergence between dreams and reality is just crystal clear here. On one hand, aspirations are uniformly high. It doesn't matter what the gender, religion, or caste is, a massive 84% are aiming for graduation. It's incredible. Yet the grim reality on the ground? Over half the sample fell short of those goals, on average by about 1.7 years. And even more worryingly, 40% exited formal education entirely between the 2 interviews. The dreams are absolutely there, aspirants, but the structural realities are practically forcing them to drop out.
And this brilliantly illustrates the deep socioeconomic fault lines at play. When we break down those falling short by wealth and gender, a really stark contrast emerges. For the boys, the failure rate remains relatively steady, hovering between 50 and 60% across all wealth brackets. But for the girls, wealth absolutely dictates the outcome. Get this, 66% of the poorest girls fall short, compared to only 38% of the richest girls. This intersection of class and gender is exactly the kind of nuance that will add immense value to your mains answers.
Right, let's take a closer look at the actual quality of education using the ASAR learning level tools. Now keep in mind, these respondents were 18 to 22 years old. Yet, only around 70% of unmarried boys and girls could read a simple Class 2 level story. But the most alarming drop is seen with married girls. Only about 45% could read that exact same story, and a mere 15% could solve basic division problems. The data just proves it. Marriage acts as a precipitous cliff for learning retention and educational quality among young women.
So to quickly summarize these stark gender realities, there is a very distinct dropout divide. Boys typically discontinue their education to go out and join the labor market. Girls, on the other hand, are systematically forced to exit at the exact time of marriage. And remember this crucial point. The data explicitly shows that unmarried girls are actually just as ambitious at setting goals and even more effective at meeting them than boys. The ambition is identical. It's the structural barriers that differ.
Which brings us to a really powerful critique of our current governance policies. Economist Garima Agarwal hits the nail on the head here. She notes, simply raising aspirations with no realistic pathway to achieving them is short-sighted. Think about it. Our educational programs currently default to just exposing students to high-achieving role models. But as this quote asserts, mere inspiration without actual systemic support just leads to consistent failure. And that breeds frustration, lowers effort, and ultimately yields much worse life outcomes.
So what is the way forward here? Well, here is a highly actionable, data-backed framework that you can directly use in your GS2 mains essay conclusions. First, we must focus policy attention heavily on removing structural barriers to access. We simply have to move beyond just role models. The state must supplement education with real support for identifying interests, robust goal setting, and highly actionable skill building. And finally, we've got to create stronger linkages between educational institutions and the employers themselves to ensure a smooth transition into the actual workforce.
So, we'll leave you with this final, provocative thought to ponder for your UPSC preparation. How can governance shift from merely inspiring our youth to systematically enabling them?
Exactly. Keep this framework firmly in mind as you study. Track the country's ability to actually match these aspirations with reality. We wish you the absolute best in your preparation, aspirants. Thank you so much for joining us for this explainer. Keep learning and keep analyzing.